Hello everybody, and welcome back to Steven's Fight Show. Alright, so Volk and Islam went the distance in an entertaining 5-round fight against each other, and just wow. That's all I can say, wow. Absolutely incredible fight. It's probably the top 3 best fights I've ever witnessed with my own 2 eyes. I'm pretty sure a lot of MMA fans can also relate because besides the decision, all MMA fans unanimously agreed that this was one of the best fights, or if not the best fight they've ever seen in their life. I mean, I mentioned how great of a fight this was going to be in my prediction video leading up to this fight, and it definitely did not disappoint. There were so many people that didn't believe so because they thought Volk was going to get absolutely steamrolled, and I'll talk more in depth about that topic later in the video. Alright, so now let's talk about the fight. I was originally going to go through the fight round by round, however, I don't believe that is necessary anymore. A lot of people have made videos or gave their opinions on this specific fight, and I've seen the feedback online, and I'm pretty sure we can all unanimously agree that rounds 1 and 4 go to Islam Makahchev, and round 5 goes to Alexander Volkanovski. But before that, I want to speak about my thoughts and the world's opinions about this fight. If you aren't somehow aware, Islam Makhachev beat Alexander Volkanovski in a close 5-round fight, and it's safe to say that the cops need to be called because apparently there's a robbery for this fight. I want to say that the decision for this fight was not a robbery at all. And the thing is, I kind of understand it because when I watch a fight live, especially a big fight, I can get caught up in the moment and let my emotions alter my way of thinking. Essentially, when I first watched the fight, I watched the fight live as a fan, and then when I rewatch it, that is when I analyze the fight. However, for this fight, even though I was very hyped, don't get me wrong, I was really hyped, I stayed composed enough to assess what was going on throughout the entire fight. And before they read out the decision, I told myself I have this fight scored 48-47 for Volk, but I will not be surprised if they score it 48-47 for Islam because there were some rounds where I was honest to myself to say that that round could have gone to Islam. However, there was a scorecard that seemed a bit ridiculous from one of the judges of this fight, and it was Derek Clearly who scored this fight 49-46 for Islam Makahchev. So immediately when I saw that scorecard, I went on social media to see if there was anyone who scored the fight like this, and a majority of people disagreed on the scorecard. However, there were actually some people like Bilal Muhammad who scored this fight 4-1 in favor of Islam. For me, I thought if you said that either Volk or Islam won the fight 3-2, then I wouldn't dispute that. However, 4-1 sounds crazy to me because some people were saying that Islam won the first 4 rounds. So I had to rewatch the fight to check 2 things. Number 1, who actually won the fight, and 2, if there's a legit argument for Islam winning the first 4 rounds. And after rewatching it, I rescored the fight 3-2 for Islam Makahchev, and although I personally don't agree with it being 49-46 to Islam, there is certainly a good argument for it. And real quick, I just want to clear this up as well. Volk did not win the 4th round. There were so many people on Twitter that were saying Volk won the 4th round. No, he did not. I'm not hating, I'm being for real. I was rooting for Volk to win this fight, but let's not be ridiculous here. Prior to Islam timing the takedown on Volk, he was already landing big strikes on Volk that were clean. Straight left hands down the pipe and a couple of check hooks. And as the fight went to the ground, Islam was holding Volk down in a dominant position but didn't really inflict damage or lock in a submission. In the meantime, Volk was landing some pity-patty strikes on the ground against Islam, and people were referring to Volk winning that round in terms of damage when that was clearly incorrect. We can't count those punches as damage. They hardly affected or even bothered Islam at all. And in reality, Islam was leading in terms of damage on the feet. The argument that control time without damage only works when the other fighter is leading big in terms of damage, when in this case it wasn't close. I can't believe some people were actually debating this because this should be common knowledge. I'm all for rooting for Volk, but this is just next level delusion. So since we know rounds 1, 4, and 5 were pretty clear, the only rounds we need to talk about are rounds 2 and 3 since they were close. Alright, so let's talk about round 2. Volk was the one that was more active for the majority of the round. He was more aggressive in terms of output, and there was a lot of switching stances from Volk. At distance, you would see him feint and stay in an orthodox stance, but when he closes range, that's when you'll see him switch to southpaw to throw an overhand left and follow up with a leg kick. He wasn't exactly successful in terms of landing this combination clean, but he was successful in backing Islam up. There was a moment in the round where Islam looked like he was going to shoot, but in real time it looked like Volk knocked him down. But later we see in the replay that the punch actually doesn't land. Islam was just more so overwhelmed. So this gives Islam an opportunity to shoot for a single leg and he gets him down, but Volk did an amazing job to get back up. At this point, Islam hasn't landed anything significant besides some check hooks while Volk is landing to the body and the legs. And it wasn't about until a minute and a half left in the round that Islam landed a counter left that backs Volk up. This is where Islam starts to push the pace by throwing punches and knees, but credit to Volk, he did a good job of weathering the storm and landed a couple of clean punches, leg kicks, and body shots. The round ends with Islam in the tie clinch, which is where he's exceptional at, and he lands a few knees but nothing too devastating. Now here's the thing, I have never competed in an MMA fight, but people were giving Islam a lot of credit for those knees. And like I said, I'm not a pro fighter to know how hard those knees were, but where I stand with all of this is that if we're going to count those strikes as serious damage from Islam, we might as well count Volk's punches on the ground in round 4. And I believe this round goes to Volk for a few reasons. He was the busier fighter and landed clean strikes to the legs and body. He did a good job of not allowing Islam to hold him down, and his recovery after getting caught by Islam and being able to land a couple of his own. Watching it back now, I could see the argument for Islam winning this round, but I don't believe he did enough. He landed the big left hand, which was the big moment for him, but he didn't capitalize effectively in my opinion. He tried to rush Volk with punches that didn't really land clean, and I felt like he would have won this round had he just shot for a takedown and held Volk in the dominant position. Instead, he was getting tagged with strikes coming in, and there wasn't a lot of fuel to feed the fire. I believe Volk's damage felt more consistent throughout the round, whereas Islam's damage was more ephemeral to me. I felt like it was more so a big moment for him, instead of an opportunity for him to really win the round. However, this isn't really an issue with the judging, I believe it's more so the criteria, but we'll talk more about that later. So round 3, in my opinion, was the most competitive round of the fight. In the beginning, both men started the fight off strong. Volk landed a few counters, a couple hooks to the body, and some damaging leg kicks as well. Islam was using his kicks very well to keep Volk at bay, and he was returning fire very well. When Volk attacked, Islam did well to counter with a couple of strikes. In the middle of the round, Islam secures a tie clinch and lands an outside trip, but had trouble holding Volk down. At this point in the round, I think it's an even fight on the feet. Volk made the adjustment to switch to southpaw, and instead of going to the overhand left, he goes to the right body hook. It was a brilliant read by Volk because he knows Islam is going to guard as soon as he steps into range, and that leaves the body wide open. However, you could say that Islam had a chest move ready because every time Volk would land, Islam was making sure that Volk wasn't going to exit without at least taking something. It was either a counter hook or a tie clinch. So if you have a case where one guy lands and the other guy lands right back, I think it's even unless another guy gets evidently hurt in the fight. And in this case, there wasn't. So Volk gets back up, and this is where I believe Islam was pulling away just a bit. Islam was landing some clean counters down the middle with the straight left hand, and when Volk would jab, Islam would counter over the top with a check hook. Those two punches were money for Islam. This is a round where I kept switching on whether or not Islam or Volk won the round. It was close on the feet, but Islam landed the cleaner strikes, whereas Volk landed with activity. Also, Volk did very well to get back up to his feet, but unfortunately due to the MMA scoring criteria, you don't earn points for that, which is something that we definitely need to discuss about, but after watching it back, I believe it's fair to say that Islam won this round. The striking was competitive this round compared to the last round, where Islam had a bit of a late rally to catch up to Volk in the striking department. I could definitely see this round being Volk's round as it was very close, but like I said again, when it's tight on the feet and one guy is landing a bit cleaner with the strikes, you normally would edge the round to him. So that was my final assessment, and that's where I'm at with this fight right now. And honestly, what a fight. I can't believe this fight was real. This fight honestly felt like a movie. And in the end, Islam wins the fight by UD, and that was pretty much what happened. After rewatching it, I'm going to say Islam won the fight 3-2. Regardless, I'm very proud of Volk. He did amazingly. Although I can understand a scenario where Islam wins the first 4 rounds, I still do not see how you cannot give Volk at least 1 round out of the first 4. Round 2 or possibly 3 belongs to Volk. People were making the argument by saying the striking was even by saying that they landed the same significant strikes, but that's simply an inaccurate assessment. MMA is not as easy as just looking at the strikes landed and determining who wins the round or who inflicted more damage based on that. Because if that's the case, why do we have judges then? Let's have John Anik read the striking numbers to us on pay-per-view and score the rounds if that's the case. But this also ties into what I said earlier. This is a problem with the scoring criteria. They need to define damage and narrow it down to score fights more precisely. A significant strike could be anything. It's too broad. If my opponent and I throw 20 significant strikes at each other, but I hurt his leg and open up a cut, Does that mean the damage is even? I mean, from my understanding, I don't think so. But you guys let me know because the scoring criteria is too subjective. And what do we even base damage off of? Are we supposed to see how a fighter reacts after taking a strike to determine damage? Because from my understanding, that's why we score knockdowns as damage, right? And also, I think they need to start rewarding fighters for getting back up to their feet. I can't believe that when I was looking over the MMA scoring criteria, that getting back up to your feet does not credit your chances of winning. And I don't know if you guys are going to agree, but I think it's a bit ludicrous. If we're going to score a takedown for someone, why shouldn't we score points for someone getting back up to their feet? I know these are two different sports, but in boxing, you get points for damage, clean punches, and defense. If you make your opponents miss, then you earn points for that. It might not be the same, but you get rewarded on both ends. Now, I'm not saying that a fighter should be scored the exact same way if they get back up compared to a fighter landing a takedown, but my point is, it should be at least something, not nothing. Otherwise, I feel like it's a bit unfair for the guy who isn't a wrestler, and it heavily favors the guy who is a wrestler. Because in hindsight, the grappler can just hold somebody down and get points for it, but when the opponent gets up, there's nothing at all. I feel like it's a bit of a one-way street in this situation. And to end this video, I just want to say both men are winners and they proved something in this fight. Islam is 100% a well-rounded fighter. We have to stop calling him a grappler because he's clearly not just that anymore. As much as we give credit to Volk for his wrestling takedown defense, we need to give credit to Islam's striking as well because it was a phenomenal display by him. Volk showed that he could hang in this weight class, and despite him losing the fight, he won against the haters because the amount of tweets and TikTok videos that I saw of people saying that there was literally nothing Volk could do to stop Islam from taking him down. Okay, so now what? People are also saying that Volk should keep the #1 pound for pound spot, and if that happens, I don't disagree, but at the same time, if Islam is #1, I wouldn't disagree as well. Since Volk was a huge underdog in this fight with a size disadvantage, people were expecting him to get finished. However, if he would have won, he had everything to gain. So I just think we can't have the narrative only favor Volk when he wins and loses because at the end of the day, Islam beat the guy that is pound for pound #1. And I think it's unfair for Islam. Like, how is he supposed to win in this scenario where Volk should be #1 because he beat Islam, but he should also be #1 because he showed that he could compete with Islam? I feel like there's no argument for Islam to win this pound for pound spot. But like I said again, regardless, I don't mind either being #1. And that is it, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to what I have to say. And let me know, who did you score the fight for? Islam Makahchev or Alexander Volkanovski? Who do you think should be pound for pound #1 after this fight? Drop a comment and let me know in the comment section down below. Now, if you guys enjoy content that is related to combat sports, please drop a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel down below. That would be greatly appreciated. Please follow my Twitter and my blog for more fight content just like this one. And other than that, it's been Steven, signing out. Peace.